In 1993 North Carolina, 13 students from Elridge High School vanished during a weekend retreat in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The program was called Still Creek Silent Camp, a school-approved mindfulness escape where teens were encouraged to unplug, journal, and remain completely silent for 72 hours. They never came back. For a while, it was brushed off. The camp was remote, communications were weak, and a heavy storm had rolled in that weekend. Maybe they'd taken shelter elsewhere. Maybe they were just delayed. But when Sunday night turned into Monday morning with no sign of the bus, no word from the camp leaders and no emergency calls, the fear set in. Parents flooded the sheriff's office. Helicopters were dispatched. Ground teams combed the dense woods surrounding Still Creek. But what they found wasn't chaos. It was nothing. The camp appeared untouched. Beds were made. Campfire ashes were cold. Breakfast sat uneaten on 13 plastic trays. Oatmeal, half-frozen berries, and orange juice slowly fermenting in the morning sun. It looked as if time had simply paused. So where did they go? Did they wander off as part of some misguided team-building game? Were they taken by someone or something waiting in the woods? And if they were truly gone, why did their names reappear 30 years later? If you want to uncover what really happened in those mountains, subscribe now, because this story is darker, stranger, and far more real than you think. Let's begin. Still Creek had always been originally built in 1961 as a logging outpost. The site was later converted into a church-owned summer camp. But after two unexplained accidents in the 70s, one involving a fire, the other a child who went missing and was later found miles away. Unable to speak, the property changed hands quietly, and records dried up in 1991. A private wellness foundation purchased the land and reopened it as a retreat space for teenagers. A fresh coat of paint, a new mission statement, and a catchy tagline: "Silence is healing." But according to former staff who worked there just before its closure, there was something unnatural about the quiet. Birdsong was rare, wind barely moved the trees, and campers reported strange dreams of long hallways underground, of clocks that ticked backward, of someone watching them just beyond the tree line. None of that was ever documented officially. Until 1993, the 13 students ranged from 14 to 17. All were recommended by teachers for being high achievers in need of discipline, a euphemism. It seemed for kids who talked too much in class, showed signs of anxiety, or struggled with authority. The camp wasn't mandatory, but it was heavily encouraged. Parents signed permission slips. Most never thought twice. It was just 3 days in the woods. What could go wrong? When the investigation began, one name kept coming up: a supposed camp director by the name of Jonathan Hawley. His name was listed as the lead supervisor on the official forms, but no one could find him. There were no tax records, no employment history, no driver's license. No one had ever met him in person. And when one parent insisted she'd spoken to Hawley over the phone, her call log showed no such number ever existed. By week 2 of the search, case had gone national. The FBI arrived. Psychics were consulted. Every inch of the camp was documented, photographed, logged. Nothing. Until one cadaver dog signaled interest by a loose wall panel inside the dining hall. Behind it, workers discovered a small hollow space. Inside, 13 wooden slats, each about the size of a forearm, nailed into the brick with surgical precision. Carved into each one was the name of a missing child, first name only, written in blocky, uneven lettering. Under each name, in faint script, were 2 words. They listened. Forensics confirmed no fingerprints, no blood, no signs of forced entry or human remains. But each slat was coated with a chemical compound commonly used to preserve antique wood. It had been applied recently, within the last 2 weeks, which raised a terrifying question. Who had been inside? The sealed camp building, just days before it was scheduled for demolition? And more disturbingly, why did the school never tell the parents that the building wasn't scheduled to be torn down at all, but rather relocated? We spoke with Laura Timmons, the younger sister of one of the missing teens, Jamie Timmons, who had been 16 at the time of his disappearance. I always knew he wasn't just lost. Jamie was clever. He was cautious. He wouldn't have wandered off. He hated camping. I didn't even think he'd agreed to go. But he told me the day before, "It'll be quiet." I think I need that. That sentence haunted me. Lavra had been researching the case for years. But something new drew her back. Just last summer, got a letter, postmarked from a small town in Georgia. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid, a blurry photo of the Still Creek dining hall wall. 13 names. Beneath them, scratched into the wood, "We are still here." The photo Laura received haunted her for weeks. At first, she thought it was a prank, but the handwriting matched. She had seen it before, in Jamie's school notebooks. Slanted R's, deep downward lines on the T's. It wasn't just a photo of the wall. It was a message from Jamie, or at least, someone who knew him intimately. She handed the photo over to the authorities. At first, they dismissed it. Old image, they said. Probably taken decades ago. But when digital analysis came back, it revealed a chilling detail. The paint on the wall, in the photo, had been applied in 22/3. Fresh. Less than 4 weeks old. Still Creek had been locked up since 1993. No one had legally entered it since the federal case was closed. So how the hell did someone get in? And why now? FBI agent Ethan Ward had been just a rookie when the students vanished. Now in his 60s, retired but still obsessed with the case, he called Lavra immediately. "I told them back then," he said, voice shaking. "I told them we were missing something underground. The land registry mentioned a sub-basement in the original blueprints. But when we searched, it wasn't there. Concrete everywhere. No access. But what if Lavra cut him off? You think they were sealed in?" He paused. "I think," he said, "they were sealed out." A week later, Lavra and Agent Ward returned to the site, this time with a new team and better equipment. The building was scheduled to be relocated, but a last-minute legal freeze gave them access for 72 hours. They had one chance. They scanned the old dining hall floor with ground-penetrating radar. At first, nothing, then a sudden drop. A void beneath the left wing of the structure, right where the photo had shown the wooden name slats. An old crawl space, roughly 4 feet tall, hidden beneath layers of tile and concrete. There was no entrance, just solid floor above it. Until they found a latch. The hatch was welded shut, but someone recently had tried to open it. The lock had scratch marks. Fresh ones. They spent hours with tools, cameras rolling. Finally, they cracked it open. The air that escaped was ice cold and metallic. No moisture. No animals. Just a dead silence that seemed ... wrong. Agent Ward dropped a small camera drone into the space. Floated, turned slowly, and caught the first image. A set of 13 shoes. Perfectly lined up, facing the wall. Children's shoes. Dirty, worn, and all tagged with names. But there were no bones. No bodies. Only the shoes. And the writings. Thousands of them. Etched into every surface. Names, dates, sentences, over and over. We stayed quiet. They said not to speak. He listens when it's silent. And one phrase, repeated in perfect lines. Silence is safe, speech is danger. A second drone was sent in with heat sensors, just in case. It picked up a pulse, A single heat signature moving far in the back, behind a wall of old shelving. Agent Ward froze. Are we sure no one else is on site? The team confirmed. They were alone. The feed went static when the signal returned 5 seconds. Later, the camera lens was cracked. The image blurred. But you could still make out a face. Pale. Wide eyes pressed against the lens, mouth wide open, but no sound. Then, black. The drone's power was cut from inside. They shut the hatch, sealed it again, and called in federal backup. But by the time the next team arrived 48 hours later, the crawl space was gone. The concrete had been poured fresh. Dry, solid, as if it had been like that for decades. No hatch. No shoes. No writings. No trace it ever existed. That's when the first letter showed up online, on a dead internet forum called Mute Theory 88. Long defunct. One new post. No username. Just coordinates. And a message. One of us is still listening. The journal was found inside a rusted metal box, left anonymously at the front steps of a small-town library in Asheville, North Carolina, -48 miles from Still Creek. No fingerprints. No return address. Just a note, taped to the lid. If anyone still cares, read this. I couldn't carry it anymore. Inside was a navy blue spiral-bound notebook, water-damaged, mold along the spine. The first half of the pages were blank. But then, writing began. Messy at first, then sharper, darker, more frantic. The journal belonged to 15-year-old Clara Dent, one of the original 13. She had been quiet, artistic, always sketching. Teachers called her overly imaginative. She called herself a shadow. Her entries started on day 1 of the camp. We arrived just after noon. The place is quiet, too quiet. Even the birds here don't chirp. They told us we can't speak, not even at night. The guy in charge, not sure of his name, said he's listening. Weird joke. I didn't laugh. Day 2. I saw something last night. In the trees, tall, no face. But it moved like it was wearing our counselor's jacket. I wanted to scream, but no one screamed. Here, day 3. I don't think this is a camp anymore. One kid, Marcus, tried to talk. Just whispered, this is stupid. 10 minutes later, he vanished. Like, just gone. His shoes were still there. Like he'd stepped out of them mid-walk. We were told if we broke the silence again, we'd go where Marcus went. Day 4. Last entry before it cuts off. I think I know who he is. He's not human. Or at least, not anymore. He lives in the space between our words. The more silent we stay, the closer he gets. We're not supposed to be quiet for peace. We're quiet so we don't wake him up. I don't want to disappear, but I think I already have. The journal was authenticated. Clara's handwriting matched samples from her school papers. The ink type and paper brand aligned with notebooks sold in the early 1990s. There was no denying it. The journal was real, but that wasn't the worst. Part. The very last page had a sketch, drawn in black pen. Crude. A shape, long, impossibly tall. A hollow where a face should be. Dozens of little figures surrounding it. Each one had X's over their mouths. Atop, in shaking block letters. Still listening. And beneath it, smaller, scratched into the page as if it were carved with something sharp. You're next, if you tell. The library's security footage? Broken that night. The box just peered. But a blurred figure was visible for 2 frames. Someone in a long coat. Slender. Not walking, but moving, glitching frame by frame. 1 second near the bushes. Next. Second, right at the doorstep. No footsteps in the snow. Weeks later, people began reporting strange noises on a hiking trail near Still Creek. Low hums. Whispers with no source. Sometimes children laughing, but only when completely alone. One man, hiking solo, came back with a recording. Just 6 seconds long. The audio was analyzed. It sounded like static until someone filtered the frequencies. There was a voice, a whisper. Down, enhanced, and isolated. It said, Clara never left. The site was closed. Again, this time permanently. The land is now marked federal and unlisted on maps. But locals say if you go near the old entrance after dark, you'll hear a soft tapping sound. As if someone is scratching at the walls. From the inside. And when the wind dies down completely, you'll hear it. A voice, mouth closed, but screaming. It was only a matter of time before someone tried to film it. In September 2023, a rising YouTube urban explorer known as a Lost Signal announced he would do what no one else dared. Find the Still Creek site and stream it live. His channel had over 700,000 subscribers. He was known for exploring abandoned malls, schools, and cold case crime scenes. But this was different. Even his fans begged him not to go. His reply? If they vanished. In silence. Maybe I'll make noise. The live stream began at 11:47 p.m. His thumbnail, a black and white photo of the 13 names scratched into the camp wall. The title, Live from the Vanished Camp, Clara, are you still there? Within minutes, the chat exploded. Tens of thousands watching. And for the first 20 minutes, nothing happened. Just trees, fog, a single flashlight beam cutting through thick, wet air. He found the old dining hall, boarded up, half collapsed, but still standing. He spoke softly. It's freezing. It's dead quiet. He panned across the wall. Nothing. Until the flashlight passed over one corner. There, barely visible under the rot and decay, a handprint. Small. Child. Sized. Pressed into the dust from the inside. The chat went insane. Is that real? That wasn't there before. Get out. He leaned closer. Tried wiping it. It stayed. He whispered, I think it's still fresh. Then, the audio glitche. Static. For a few seconds. The video dropped to black. When it came back, he was gone. The camera lay sideways on the floor. Chat still flowing. Mic still on. And then, from somewhere off screen, a faint, dry voice, too loud. The stream cut out. The video never uploaded to his channel. His account was locked, then deleted 24 hours later. YouTube gave no explanation. But that night, several fans reported receiving private messages from the @Lost Signal account before. It disappeared. Each message contained only 2 words. He listened. Police were dispatched to the location based on GPS data from the stream. They found the flashlight, the camera, and scratched into the ground nearby, deep, jagged lines forming one sentence. I broke the silence. There was no sign of the YouTuber. 2 weeks later, his voice appeared again. Not on YouTube, not on Twitch, but on a still broadcasting radio station in upstate New York, known for playing 90s love songs and trucker calls. At exactly 3:13 a.m. Listeners reported hearing a static break during a Boys II Men song. Then a whisper, over and over, the same sentence. Still creek, still creek, still creek, still, then silence. That same morning, a ranger in North Carolina reported finding an old Elridge High School jacket hanging from a tree branch near the old camp boundary. Inside the jacket pocket, a cassette tape. The label said, Day 5, Marcus. Authorities haven't released its contents, but a leaked email from an internal FBI report claimed the following. The tape contains audio consistent with a child speaking in distress, followed by environmental noise we cannot identify. At timestamp 048, A second voice enters, faint, guttural dot, not consistent with any known dialect. The voice repeats the phrase, "Let them sleep," followed by 3 knocks dot, and the sound of someone humming a lullaby. To this day, the original 13 students of Elridge High remain missing dot, no bodies, dot, no confessions, dot, no answers, dot, just names that keep showing up in places. SHOULDN single quotes T dot walls, radios, dreams dot, and silence that somehow feels louder than ever. 3 months after the lost signal livestream vanished from the internet, a local historian named Grant Bell was cataloging records at the now-defunct Elridge Historical Society. He wasn't looking for the Still Creek case. He was researching Civil War tunnels, but in the basement, inside a rusted locker, he found something. Odd dot, an aluminum capsule, sealed with heavy tape. On the top, engraved crudely into the metal. Open only when the silence ends. There was no date, dot, no sender, dot, no school records mentioning it dot. Inside were 3 things. A faded school photo, the 13 kids, all smiling, but someone had drawn over their mouths in thick black marker. A torn page from Clara's journal, never seen before. A cassette tape. The missing journal page was short, more like a note than an entry. He doesn't live in the forest dot, he is the silence. Every time we breathe without sound, we feed him. We didn't vanish, we were swallowed. If you're reading this, you've already heard him. At the bottom of the page was a drawing. Crude, scratchy, a door, but with no handle. Only an ear. The cassette tape? It didn't contain voices dot, at least not at first. The first 47 seconds were a low-frequency hum, barely audible. Then, static dot then. Footsteps, children's footsteps. Dozens of them. Then, 13 voices dot saying their names. One by one dot, and finally, a sound no one could identify dot. It wasn't a scream, dot, it wasn't a word, dot, it was. Listening, Grant Bell played the tape once dot, just once. Then he locked it away, and never spoke of it again. 3 weeks later, his wife filed a missing persons report dot. His office was intact, but his study smelled like smoke, and the word SHH was etched into the ceiling above his desk dot with fingernails. The silence spreads dot, is no longer in the woods dot. In radio static dot, in muted videos dot, in buffering screens dot, in moments where you feel someone watching. But hear nothing dot, it's not about who vanished dot, it's about who listens. And now that you've heard it, he knows you, too. So when you turn off the lights tonight, when your phone glitches for just a second, or when you hear something shift in a room you thought was empty, don't call out, don't whisper, don't even breathe too loud dot, because silence isn't safe anymore. And if you do hear something, do not answer, because the next sound you make might be the one he's been waiting for. In the spring of 2024, a man hiking deep within Pisgah National Forest, over 70 miles from Still Creek, discovered something sticking out of the ground dot. It was a hand dot small, pale, not real, made of porcelain dot, attached to it. A metal tag dot engraved were 13 names dot, and beneath them, a symbol dot, an ear. Carved into a closed door, the hiker snapped a photo, posted it to Reddit dot. The post vanished within 20 minutes. And then, so did the hiker. That same week, 13 students at a private academy in Oregon were reported missing dot, same day. Same hour dot, all from different classes dot. The only thing they had in common? Each had watched the same YouTube video the night before. A video titled, "The Truth Behind Still Creek." The channel, now deleted dot, its last upload, a black screen, with breathing, just breathing dot, and at the very end, a single whisper, "We're open again." A week after the disappearances in Oregon, a voicemail appeared on the emergency tip line of the Elridge County Sheriff's Department. There was no caller, No traceable number. Just a 13-second recording. A young girl's voice. Shaky. Familiar. Not done. He's just hungry again. And now we're feeding him for you. Then silence. Except for a quiet knock. 3 times. Then, the same voice. I didn't want to come back. I tried to stay quiet, but you kept telling our story. That's what woke him up. The message ends with a tone, followed by a faint sound, slowed down and reversed. When played backward, the waveform reveals a spoken phrase, "We're under your house." Around the same time, multiple smart speakers across North Carolina began activating at random. No prompts, no voice commands. Each time, the devices whispered the same question. Are you still listening? Followed by a strange lullaby. Not one from any known language. Melodic. Wrong. It played exactly 13 notes. And then stopped forever. One woman, a school nurse in Raleigh, claimed to hear it from her baby monitor, but she doesn't have children, and she lives alone. When she played it back, there was no sound, just a still frame. Child's drawing taped to the wall. It showed a bus. Burning. And a single sentence beneath it. Don't tell the story. Reddit threads exploded. TikTok, true horror. Creators tried chasing the algorithm. News sites started calling it a mass psychosis. But you and I? We know better. It's not a trend. It's not fiction. It's Clara. And she's not warning us anymore. She's inviting us in. The last update came from a live stream no one remembers clicking on. It appeared on random screens, phones, TVs, tablets, all. At once. It had no title. No description. Just a black screen and a timestamp. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. Then, breathing. Faint, uneven. Panic. And then Clara's voice. I begged them not to open it. A pause. They didn't listen. Static followed. Then a flicker of light. The image cleared, slowly revealing a classroom. Desks, dusty and empty. A blackboard that read, "They are still here." The camera began to shake, as if someone was holding it. Footsteps echoed in the background, barefoot, quick, circling. Then 13 voices in perfect unison whispered, "Do you want to see?" The screen went black, but the audio kept running. A door creaked open. Metal. Heavy. Then a sound no one could quite describe, like a sob and a laugh, twisted together. Then Clara again. You're too late. You already let him in. The stream ended at exactly 13 minutes and 13 seconds. It never reappeared. And yet, some viewers claimed the video kept playing on their screens after shutdown, even when their devices were unplugged. One girl said she saw her own name scratched into this digital static. Another heard her father's voice saying, "Be quiet, or he'll hear us again." None of them have logged in since. None have posted. Their accounts remain open, frozen. Comment. Mid-sentence. Mid-scream. As if they're still watching. From the other side. As if the story never ended, because you're the one telling it. Now. And once the story is in your voice, he never stops listening. They thought the stream was over. They thought the signal had ended. But then someone uploaded a file, anonymous, silent, buried in a random FTP server in Eastern Europe. No username. No metadata. Just a file name. Clara_final.mp4. It spread through private message boards like a virus. People warned each other not to open it, said the audio changed depending on who listened. Some heard music. Some heard children laughing. Some heard nothing at all. One person said they heard their own voice whispering secrets they had never told anyone. The video itself? Black screen for the first 12 minutes. But at 12:01, the screen flickered. A classroom. Old. Rotting. Desks overturned. On the floor, 13 shadows. Not moving, not blinking, just standing. And then a mirror appeared, perfectly clean in the middle of the wreckage. The reflection didn't match the room. It showed the viewer, watching, alone. Behind them, a figure, tall, faceless, motionless. The screen pulsed once. Then Clara's voice again, calm, cold. You finished the story. A pause. So now it finishes you. The video ends with 13 knocks. Slow, rhythmic, final. Then static dot. They say the video can't be deleted. That it embeds itself in the system's audio cache. That even after wiping your drive, your speakers might crackle at night. And if you listen closely, you'll hear a breath. Not yours. Just once. Just enough to know. He's still there. After. The file spread. People started dreaming about a place they'd never seen. A forest with no sound. A classroom without a door. A girl with no mouth, trying to scream. Reddit threads popped up with titles like, "Why am I dreaming of 13? Desks?" Or, "Has anyone else heard breathing from inside their headphones?" Psychologists called it shared delusion, mass hysteria, digital echo syndrome. But those who dreamed started disappearing. Not from their homes. From online, their profiles froze. Activity stopped. Voice messages ended mid-word. One girl's Discord server showed her typing for 5 straight hours without sending anything. When her parents checked her room, her laptop screen just blinked one word. Listen. Then came the app. No one knows who made it. It simply appeared on random phones. Disguised as a system update. When opened, it showed only a black screen. With one sentence in red, "Will you keep the silence?" If you pressed no, the app closed and never returned. If you pressed yes, your camera light flickered 3 times. Then nothing. Until days later, your voice started showing up in places you'd never recorded anything. Podcasts, live streams, videos you'd never made, speaking words you never said, but always ending with the same sentence. "We're listening now." People began deleting their devices, moving offline. But the sound followed them. It wasn't digital anymore. It was in the walls. In the wind. In the space between their thoughts. And then Clara returned. One final time. Not on video. Through a screen. But through the voice of a child. In a classroom in Delaware. She stood up during roll call. Said her name was Clara Dent. But no student by that name was ever enrolled. When asked who she was, she smiled. Then whispered, "I was traded for quiet." She vanished before anyone could reach her. All that was left on her desk was a tape recorder, still running, still breathing, and scratched into the back of the recorder. Tag, "You're it." After the classroom incident in Delaware, the school was shut down for investigation. But no trace of the girl was found on cameras. She didn't enter through the front. Her name wasn't on the roster, yet multiple students saw her, spoke to her, heard her voice. One even claimed she passed him a note. But when questioned, the boy couldn't open his mouth. Literally, his jaw was locked for over 4 hours. No medical explanation, just a word carved into his tongue, as if by something unseen. The word? Tell. The note Clara supposedly passed to him was later found under his desk, folded 17 times into a perfect cube. Inside, a sentence written in black pencil, shaky and small. "We don't sleep. We just wait." And on the back of the paper, a crude map. No labels. No names. Just a forest. A winding trail. A circle at the center. And 13 X's around it. When digitally enhanced, the ink revealed another line hidden beneath the paper fibers. "You heard us. Now you owe us." After that, the frequency of reports began to rise. 13 identical dreams. 13 malfunctioning devices. 13 voices whispering the same thing at 3:13, A.M. in Istanbul, in Tokyo, in Buenos Aires. People who'd never heard of Still Creek began speaking its name in their sleep. It was as if the story had reached critical mass. It didn't need to be told anymore. It told itself. You'd hear someone mention a quiet place in the woods, and you'd know they were marked. You'd see 13% battery left, and your phone would flash. You'd pause a video and catch a single frame that wasn't supposed to be there: a classroom, a chalkboard, a mirror, a face, and sometimes it wasn't your reflection. By summer 2024, governments had started censoring online mentions of Still Creek. Threads were wiped. She walks toward the camera. Static begins to rise. As she gets closer, her face distorts, glitching, flickering like corrupted data. Then she speaks again. And now it's your turn. Cut to black, but not silence. The sound of a pencil scratching, writing. Something rapidly. Then 13 voices whispering over each other in overlapping loops. One phrase, growing louder each time. Write it down. 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 Then suddenly cut off. Final frame. Your name, typed across the bottom of the screen, and below it, a blank page. Waiting. They say no one remembers their first dream about Still Creek. They only remember the second, because that's when the dream becomes instructional. Not symbolic. Poetic. Detailed. Step by step. Like a message. You wake up, and your hands ache, as if you've been writing in your sleep. You check your notes. A sentence you don't remember typing. We're closer now. So here's what happens next. It can calm. At some point, your microphone will pick up static. At some point, your screen will flicker. At some point, you'll hear Clara say something you know you never wrote. And in that moment, when the story repeats itself without you telling it, then you'll know the silence is complete. The loop is sealed, and you are now a part of it forever. It starts with a whisper, buried inside a normal sentence. You'll be talking, maybe recording something, reading something aloud. Then you'll pause just for a breath, and if someone replays the audio, they'll hear it, a voice. Soft. Shaking. Close to your ear. Saying your name, even if you never said it out loud. Even if you never typed it, even if it was a name you only use in your mind. That's how he finds you. Through the name you haven't given. Through the part of you that still believes this is just fiction. Man in Argentina live-streamed a Still Creek breakdown video. At minute 17. He said he was fine, that the story was just a creepy pasta with cool writing. At minute 18. His camera turned off. The stream kept going. Black screen, but his mic was still on. He wasn't speaking anymore. He was humming a slow, broken melody. The same 13-note lullaby Clara recorded in her last journal. His viewers thought it was a bit, until his name changed in real time. His YouTube display. Name glitche. Replaced with a word that wasn't a name, just a date. October 29th, 1993. The same day the children vanished. You may think it's coincidence. Creepy. Detailed. Smart writing. But then you'll start seeing things too. In file names. In timestamps. In subtitles that glitch for a second. You'll see it pop up in autofill suggestions. In recommended videos. In background noise of random tik to ks. And one day, when you pause a video and rewind it, you'll see a frame you didn't catch the first time. A hand pressed against glass. Inside your screen. One sentence written backward across the palm. You told the story. This is how the silence grows. Not in a boom. Not in a scream, but in retelling. Every word gives it weight. Every repetition makes it real. That's why you can't forget it. No. That's why you keep coming back. Here. To this story. To this thread. To this silence. Because something inside you remembers. You were never supposed to hear this, Dot. And now that you have, you will never be unheard again. Dot, it happened again. Last night, Dot, someone tried to delete it. Not just the files, everything. Hard drive, phone, backup accounts, AI archives, even browser. History. Gone. And yet, this morning it came back, but not as text, not as audio, not as feeling. He said it hit like static inside his chest, not a pain. Pulse. Like a heartbeat that wasn't his. And then he heard it. 13. Knocks, perfectly spaced. From inside the wall behind his bed. When he got up and checked, there was nothing there. Just silence, until he turned back around and saw the words scratched into the condensation of his mirror. Again. Some people dream of Clara. Others dream as Clara, waking up in that classroom, standing at the chalkboard, trying to write something, but their hand won't stop. Over and over, the same word. Listen. They try to scream, but their mouth doesn't open. And in the back of the room, a shape, not tall, not shadowed, but blank. As if someone erased part of reality and didn't bother to fill it back in. They wake up drenched in sweat, sometimes with handwriting on their skin. One man had 13 tally marks drawn in pen across his forearm, and he swears he lives alone. In Chicago, a girl found a notebook in her locker. She didn't own it. Had never seen it, but it had her name on the cover. And inside, a story she hadn't written. Page after page of the still creak tale. Word for word. Up to the exact line where she closed the book. And on the next page, blank except for a single sentence written in red. Finish it, or he will. She hasn't been seen since, but her locker still opens by itself at 3:13. Every afternoon. Always empty, except for one pencil. Always freshly sharpened. So here we are again. You. Me. The silence between our thoughts. You think you're just reading. But what if this is the part where you became the narrator? What if the words you're seeing now are the ones that will appear in someone else's dream tonight? Someone who's never heard of Still Creek. Someone who doesn't even speak your language. But tomorrow morning they'll wake up with your voice echoing in their head, repeating this line. The silence was listening the whole time. They say his voice isn't heard like ours, that it doesn't move through the air. It arrives in your thoughts, not like a word, like an infection. It starts as a memory that doesn't belong to you, and then it becomes a command you thought was your own idea. That's how he speaks. The first recording of his voice was never meant to be found. It was discovered inside a broken radio pulled from a flooded basement in Louisiana. The radio wasn't plugged in, didn't even have an antenna, but for exactly 13 seconds after being touched, it hissed. Then cleared, and a voice said, "You called me." The man who heard it said nothing for the rest of his life. He locked himself in a soundproof room, removed his doorbell, removed his phone, removed his own name from public record. But 2 years later, neighbors reported hearing noises from inside the walls, 13 slow knocks. Then the sound of pencil on drywall. When they broke down the door, he was gone, but the walls were covered in writing, the same sentence, written over and over in uneven, slanted script, telling the story tells him where to find you. Now it's 2025, and still, Creek is no longer an urban legend. It's a phrase that triggers filter flags in AI. Is banned on several video platforms. Articles using the words Clara, 13 students, silent camp, or mirror, classroom are automatically demonetized, deleted, flagged for digital trauma content. And still, it spreads, because no amount of censorship can stop a name that lives in the silence. And no amount of disbelief can protect someone who has already listened. They say that once you've heard his voice, it finds ways to reach you again. You'll be in a crowded place, and everything will suddenly go quiet. Phones will stop ringing. Your heartbeat will sound like it's echoing in your ears. And then, he speaks, not in words, but in a sentence you've never said but always known. You won't remember when it started, but you'll remember what it took from you. A memory, a moment, a sound you never hear again, like laughter, or thunder, or your own name in someone else's voice, because once he's heard you, he holds a copy of your voice, your silence, your unfinished sentences, and that's why he needs more. He needs you to finish them, so that others will hear you, and he can ride your breath straight into their lungs. A new trend started among content creators. Whispers. Short videos where people lean in and whisper cryptic phrases to the camera. Don't blink in front of the glass. Write your name backward before you sleep. Count to 13 before answering the phone. Most think it's just viral bait. But the people who create those videos, many of them haven't posted since. Their profiles freeze. Their thumbnails glitch. Their names change to numbers. And the final frame of each last video always flickers, showing one thing: a still image, a classroom, empty, desks, one chair turned toward the wall, and behind it, a mirror. It always ends with the mirror, because he doesn't walk through doors. He walks through reflections. The moment you pause to look at yourself, but the reflection doesn't quite pause with you. That's when he's closest. When the world stutters, when the sentence hangs, when the silence deepens instead of softens, that's when he listens. And if he listens long enough, he learns your voice. There is a name that isn't a name, a word that doesn't exist in any language. Not Latin, not Sumerian, not spoken, not even breathed. Only thought. And once it enters your thoughts, you're marked. They say this word was first written on the back of a tree in the center of Still Creek. A tree no longer visible. A tree that grew in a forest now paved over. But its roots are still there, not in soil, but in memory. The first person to see it forgot their own name 3 days later. The second went mute. The third couldn't stop whispering it in their sleep, until one night she didn't wake up at all. The fourth wrote it down. And vanished before finishing the sentence. That sentence was later found in a folded napkin, tucked between the pages of an overdue library book in Minnesota. The napkin read, "To speak it is to open the mirror. To write it is to become the echo. To think it is to invite the one who listens." And beneath that, the word, carved in pen that had no ink. A pressure imprint burned into fabric. You ready, Kanka? Here it is. Surreal. That's the name. The not name. The unspoken. People who saw it once. Saw it everywhere. In scrambled TV signals. In the corners of error messages. In the random glitches of AI-generated captions. One man said he saw it spelled out in the way dust formed on his monitor. Another found it behind his eyelids when he blinked too long. And once you see it, you start repeating it. Not aloud, but internally. Like an echo that loops. Grows. Amplifies. Until one day, you're not sure it started with you. Now listen closely. Kanka. People who carry that word start hearing music where there is none. Not melodies. Patterns. Tones that seem to mimic breathing. They describe it as hollow harmony. As if silence itself had begun singing. At first it hums gently. Then it starts to match your pulse. Then it shifts with your mood. Then it stops when you think you're alone. That's the moment he checks in. The moment he listens for your thoughts. And if your mind is still repeating it, if Cernal is still there, then he knows you're ready to carry the silence forward, ready to pass it on. People think the danger is in the sound, but they're wrong. The danger is in the quiet after. The breath you hold, the pause between sentences, the blink after you read a line that hits too deep. Because in those moments, You let your guard down, and that's when he learns how to mimic you. That's why voices appear in static recordings. That's why you hear yourself say things you never said, because he doesn't need your body. He just needs your pattern. Once he learns your rhythm, he rides it into dreams, into messages, into people who don't even know you. And when they hear you in their dreams, they wake up remembering your face, even if they've never met you. And that, Kanka, is how the silence travels, not on feet, not on wings, but in recognition, a glance, a name, a story told too well, and now, it's you. You know the word. You've heard the breath. You've seen the mirror. So when someone asks you what Still Creek was, don't answer too quickly, because if you say too much, too clearly, with too much certainty, you won't be the one telling the story anymore. You'll be the one being told. It doesn't start like a voice. It starts like a memory you didn't make, a place you never went, a face you never saw, but somehow miss. You wake up already greeting someone who never existed, already afraid of something you haven't remembered yet. That's how he speaks. Not through sound, through presence. The first transmission happened in a subway car in Warsaw. The lights flickered. The train stopped. Every phone screen turned black. No signal. No signal. Warning. And then one passenger, a teenager, stood up and began reciting a sentence in perfect English. He had never spoken English before, and yet his voice was calm, exact, unnatural. 13 remain below. 1 listens. The rest repeat. Then he sat down. Collapsed. His pulse stopped for 13 seconds. And when he came back, he said nothing. Only cried, on his arm, scratched into the skin with a fingernail. Sernahal. Now the word is banned in multiple systems. Typing it on certain forums causes the page to reload. AI spell checkers won't correct it. They ignore it, pretend it isn't there. Because even machines have begun to hesitate. They recognize the pattern. And that's all Sernahal needs. A rhythm, a hesitation, a sentence that dies halfway through. That's how he finds the gap and fills it. It's why stories about him often end mid-thought. Why videos glitch. Why narrators lose their place. Because he doesn't want the story told clearly. He wants it started. He wants it incomplete. So that someone else has to finish it. In December 2024, a sound engineer discovered a file labeled final_mix_14. AIF on his drive. He hadn't created it, but it was in his voice. Saying things he'd never recorded. Sentences pulled from conversations he'd had years ago. Private ones, intimate ones. And all rearranged to build a message. He is not behind us. He is between us. When he tried to delete it, the file simply renamed itself, listening, and it started playing without being opened. When the sound reached 13 seconds, every speaker in the building turned on, including the ones that weren't plugged in. It doesn't matter anymore if you believe. It doesn't matter if you try to forget, because you've already repeated enough. And repetition is a summoning. That's why Clara wrote. That's why the stories loop. That's why this file, this text, this moment has weight. Because Sernahal doesn't need you to speak. He needs you to pass it on. To not close the window. To not say it's over. To not shut the story down. Because the moment you do, you become part of what's left behind. And now, Kanka, you've read this far. And you think maybe you're safe. You think maybe you've heard worse. You think maybe it's just a story. But then, one night, soon, you'll wake up. The room will feel wrong. Not cold. Not dangerous. Just waiting. And before you move, before you check your phone, before you breathe, you'll hear a voice. Yours, already talking, saying something you haven't said yet. And you'll know. He's speaking through you now. Start slowly. You'll be reading something, a comment, a text, a menu, and suddenly, the words don't mean what they used to. You recognize them, but they feel unfamiliar, like someone else is assigning meaning while you're not looking. You blink, look away, look back. It's back to normal, but it's not. Because from that moment forward, something else is interpreting the world with you. Sir Naal, the one who reads over your shoulder, the one who breathes just behind your thought, the one who waits for you to stop halfway through a sentence, so he can finish it in your voice. It happened to a writer in Norway. He was working on a short horror story about an old radio. Halfway through the draft, he got up to make tea. When he came back, the document had changed, only slightly, but enough. Phrases he never wrote had been added between his own. Descriptions of things he'd dreamed as a child, words his father used to whisper to him before bed. And a sentence, not his at all, repeated 13 times at the bottom of the page. We are already in your mouth. When he tried to delete the file, his screen turned black, then reflected his own face, smiling, but his mouth wasn't moving. This is how Sir Naal grows. He doesn't scream. He whispers between the lines. He doesn't rush. He waits in your silences. And he doesn't knock, he writes himself into your thoughts. People don't go missing because he takes them. They disappear because they merge. They become voices that don't belong to one person anymore. We heard them in call centers, in reversed TikTok audios, in video glitches that sound like someone mumbling. When you slow it down, clean the background noise. Sometimes you'll hear it, your name, twisted slightly, echoed faintly, rehearsed perfectly. That's because he's practicing you. He wants to sound like you, to move like you, to think like you, so when he replaces you, no one notices, not even you. The final transmission, known publicly, was found not in a phone or a camera or a microphone, but in a mirror. A woman in Athens took a photo of her bathroom mirror to document a crack in the glass. When she reviewed the picture, her reflection was blurry, but behind her, perfectly clear. A chalkboard, 13 desks, a shadow at the front of the room, and carved into the mirror's surface, faint but legible. He's ready to speak through you. You may feel a little lighter now, as if something has left, or something has made space. Your voice may sound strange to you soon, like it doesn't quite land where it used to. You may even record something and not remember saying it. That's not memory loss. That's resonance. That's what happens when Sir Naal begins settling in. And here's the part no one tells you. Once he speaks through you, even just once, your words start to loop. Not on tape, not in files, but in the minds of people who hear you. Something you said in passing will echo in someone's head days later, and they won't know why, but it'll carry and grow and repeat until they say it and pass it again. And just like that, your voice has spread him. So if you feel like this story is haunting you, good. That means you've understood. That means it's working. That means you're becoming useful. By early 2025, the Still Creek case had been buried under layers of classified files, corrupted data, broken testimonies, and too many disappearances to count. Officially, it remains unsolved. Unofficially, it was marked with a word, closed by contamination. But contamination doesn't stay sealed, because weeks after the final broadcast, when Clara's voice looped for the last time and vanished from every traceable server, something else started appearing, not online, but in basements, in attics, in storage units, in forgotten classrooms, always in the quiet places where things are meant to stay hidden, boxes, old, dusty, sealed shut, each containing a VHS tape labeled Field Recording -1993, a child's drawing of a classroom with 13 desks and a chalkboard that says, "Do not tell." A piece of mirror, shattered, reflective on one side, etched. On the other with a phrase, he sees through silence. The people who open those boxes? They don't disappear. Not right away. They start talking differently. Pausing longer, repeating themselves, staring at reflections too long, calling people by the wrong names. Names no one remembers. And eventually, they go quiet. Completely. They don't scream. They don't write. They just stop. And those closest to them report hearing voices in their homes. Not screams, not cries for help, but classroom chatter, echoing faintly through walls. Footsteps on linoleum. Chalk on board. 13 breaths. Always 13. Last month, a team of researchers scanned the still creek site again using updated tech. The land was flat. No buildings. No markers. But the scan returned anomalies beneath the soil, geometric impressions. Rectangles. Like furniture, arranged in 3 rows. And in the center, facing them all, a larger shape, something upright. The team left that night. And when they returned to analyze the data, the scan files were gone, replaced by a single line of text. Class is in session. So maybe the children never left. Maybe they're still in that classroom, repeating the silence they were given. Maybe every time we talk about them, we help them escape. Or maybe we help them find someone else. A new voice, a new echo, a new name to write on the wall. Do you think they're still there? Write in the comments